Hello and welcome back to another Sports Playground video. And today I will be going over how each draft class of quarterbacks performed this season. So, I guess let's get right into it. By the way, I would really appreciate it if you liked and subscribed to the channel. Thanks so much, and let's get started. So we'll start with the first draft class with a quarterback in it. That would be 2000 with good old Tom Brady. So Tom passed for this is through 15 games, by the way. Tom had 66% completion percentage, 4,200 yards, 36 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, a 101 rating, and a 10-5 record. I'm gonna say this draft class. I'm gonna rate it with dub, L, or neutral. So I'm gonna go with a W here. I mean, this is a team that they're gonna make the Buccaneers are gonna make the playoffs. So that's definitely enough, in my opinion, to call this a victory for 2000. Next up, we have 2001, which is just Drew Brees. 71% completion percentage, 2,100 yards, 21 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 105 rating, and an 8-3 record. I'm gonna say he took an L, even though they are one of the best teams in the NFC. He has shown major regression in his arm strength, and he also did get injured and missed time, allowing Taysom Hill to take a loss to the Eagles, which is not good, seeing as how the Eagles are not good at all. And yeah, and then 2002 draft class, we have Josh McCown, who is on the Eagles practice squad. This is an L because he's not starting. 2003 draft class. This is it. Oh, well, actually, we'll call it a neutral because he hasn't had a chance to mess anything up. 2003 draft class, another neutral because everyone has retired from that draft class. When it comes to quarterbacks, 2004 draft class, we have Philip Rivers passing for 68%, 4,000 yards, 23 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 98 rating, and a 10-5 record. Ben Roethlisberger with 65% completion percentage, 3,800 yards, 33 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 94 rating, 12-3 record. And then we have Matt Schaub, who has played in one game. He has 3 rush attempts for -4 yards, but those rushing attempts were actually just QB kneels. So he's only had 1 appearance this season. And this all totals up to about 7,800 yards, 56 touchdowns, 20 interceptions, and a 22-8 record. This draft class definitely took a dub. Even if the Steelers are finishing slow and the Colts might not even make the playoffs, their numbers have just looked great. Even though Ben Roethlisberger has played below his stats, and I still think that this is probably a good performance from this draft class. 2005, we have Alex Smith at 66% completion percentage, 1,400 yards, 4 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, a 79 rating, and a 4-1 record. And he's probably going to be comeback player of the year. And then next we have Aaron Rodgers with a 70% completion percentage, 4,000 yards, 44 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and a 12-3 record, and probably the MVP and a Pro Bowler. And then we have Ryan Fitzpatrick, who, as I'm recording this, has recently tested positive for COVID, with 2,100 yards, 13 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 96 rating, 4-3 record, and a 69% completion percentage. Not to mention his relief appearances where he has performed very well. I think overall, well, first of all, they had 7,500 total yards, 61 touchdowns, 19 interceptions. I think this draft class performed extremely well for what they were with so far this year. And yeah, and then 2006 neutral. No one in this draft class still plays quarterback. 2007 another neutral because we have Drew Stanton as the only one remaining, and he's on the Buccaneers practice squad. 2008 we have Matt Ryan, 65% completion percentage, 4,300 yards, 24 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 93 rating, and a 4-11 record. And then we have Joe Flacco, 55% completion percentage, 860 yards, 6 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 81 rating, and an 0-4 record. We have Chad Henne, who has played in 2 games, and he's 5 for 6 with 30 yards, and an 88 rating. No starts, though. Then we have Josh Johnson, who's on the 49ers roster, but he hasn't done anything. Overall, this draft class definitely took an L. I mean, Matt Ryan played good. Joe Flacco is out of his prime and really is never going to be a starting quality quarterback probably ever again. And Chad Henne and Josh Johnson aren't doing much. But overall, their total stats are 5,200 yards, 30 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, and a 4-15 record. And now on to the 2009 draft class, which is only Matthew Stafford, with a 64% completion percentage, 3,800 yards, 23 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and a 95 rating, and a 5-10 record. They took an L. I mean, Matthew Stafford definitely had a down year. It's been a rough season. He's dealt with COVID and other minor injuries that he's had to play through. And next up, we have the 2010 draft class. The 2010 draft class has only Colt McCoy remaining. So he has a 61% completion percentage, 375 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, a 75 rating, and a 1-1 record. We're gonna say neutral. I mean, Colt McCoy did have that great win against the Seahawks, but otherwise he hasn't been amazing. But he's really, that win is what's keeping them alive and in this NFC East terrible playoff race. And next up we have 2011, where we have 5 quarterbacks. So we have Cam Newton, 66% completion percentage, 2,400 yards, 5 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 80 rating, and a 6-7 record as a starter. And then we have Blaine Gabbert, who has 56% completion percentage, 140 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and a 126 rating, backing up Tom Brady this year. Andy Dalton has a 65% completion percentage, 1,900 yards, 14 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 91 rating, and a 4-4 record. Oh yeah, and by the way, I can't believe I didn't mention this earlier. This is based off quarterbacks that were drafted. So yeah. And then we have Tyrod Taylor, 53% completion percentage, 200 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and a 1-0 record and a 75 rating. So, but he did have that crazy punctured lung weird issue with the doctor, and that's where he stands. And then next up, technically he was drafted, but he was drafted in the supplemental draft. We have Terrell Pryor, who is not on a team, but he plays wide receiver now. So yeah, he is in here. But this totals up to about 4,640 yards, 21 touchdowns, 17 interceptions, and an 11-11 record. I'm definitely gonna say this draft class took an L. I mean, between Tyrod Taylor and Cam Newton, and this has just been rough for them. So yeah. And then next up, we have another 5 quarterbacks in the 2012 draft class. So we have Robert Griffin III, Ryan Tannehill, Russell Wilson, Nick Foles, Kirk Cousins, and we'll start with Robert Griffin, who has a 57% completion percentage, 40 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 23 rating, and an 0-1 record. Then we have Ryan Tannehill, who has 65% completion percentage, 3,600 yards, 32 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 107 rating, and a 10-5 record. And then we have Russell Wilson at a 70% completion percentage, 4,000 yards, 3,800 touchdowns, 38 touchdowns rather than 3,800. Gosh, that's a lot. 13 interceptions, 106 rating, 11-4 record, and a Pro Bowl. And then we have Nick Foles at a 65% completion percentage, 1,800 yards, 10 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 81 rating, 2-5 record. And then we have Kirk Cousins, 67% completion percentage, 3,800 yards, 32 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, a 103 rating, and a 6-9 record. So this all totals up to about 13,240 yards, 112 touchdowns, 43 interceptions, and a 29-24 total record. Overall, that's a pretty good performance. I'm going to give them, and all these gradings are on the spot, so I'm going to give them a dub. I mean, that's a lot of yards and a pretty good touchdown interception ratio. And a 29-24 record is always solid because that's above 500. So yeah. And then now we have the 2013 draft class where we have Geno Smith, who was 4'5", 80 with an 80% completion percentage, 30 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and a 94 rating. And then Mike Glennon, 62% completion percentage, 810 yards, 5 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 75 rating, and an 0-4 record. And then we have Matt Barkley, who's 3 of 5, 60% completion percentage, 20 yards, and 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, but a 70 rating. And this totals up to about 860 yards, 5 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and an 0-4 record. That's an L. Massive L. I mean, I don't even know. These are all backups at this point. This is just an L. And then next up we have Teddy Bridgewater of the 2014 draft class, which is where we are now. We have Teddy Bridgewater, 70% completion percentage, 3,500 yards, 15 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 95 rating, 4-10 record, and then we have Derek Carr at 68% completion percentage, 3,700 yards, 25 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 102 rating, and a 7-8 record. Then we have Jimmy Garoppolo, 67% completion percentage, 1,100 yards, 7 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 92 rating, and a 3-3 record. Then we have Logan Thomas, who was drafted as a quarterback, who is now a tight end for Washington. This season he has had 69 receptions, 633 yards, 9.2 yards per catch, 5 touchdowns. And then now we have Tom Savage, who is no longer on a roster, AJ McCarron, who's only taken 1 snap, David Fales, who is not on a roster, and Garrett Gilbert of the Cowboys. Oh yeah, AJ McCarron of the Texans. And Garrett Gilbert of the Cowboys with 55% completion percentage, 240 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 73 rating, and an 0-1 record. This draft class totals up to about 8,540 yards, 48 touchdowns, 22 interceptions, and a 14-22 record. They took an L. I mean, you can't be. Even though the quarterback performance was all right, it wasn't amazing. This is definitely an L. I mean, 14-22 is a pretty bad record. Next up, we have 2015 draft class with Jameis Winston, 64% completion percentage, 80 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and an 84 rating. And then we have Marcus Mariota, who is 61% completion percentage, 230 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and an 83 rating, neither of which have started a game. And then we have Sean Mannion, who's on the Vikings roster, and Brett Hundley, who's on the Cardinals roster. And we have Trevor Siemian, who is on the Saints practice squad. And this totals up to 310 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. I mean, we're going to say that they took an L from where this draft class was last year to where it is this year. They definitely took an L. And then now we have 2016 draft class. Jared Goff to start. 67% completion percentage, 3,900 yards, 20 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, 90 rating, 9.6 and a 9-6 record. We have Carson Wentz, 57% completion percentage, 2,600 yards, 16 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, 73 rating, and a 3-8-1 record. And Jacoby Brissett, who is 2 of 8, 25% completion percentage, 20 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and a 40 rating. And then we have Cody Kessler, who's not on the roster. We have Dak Prescott, who has 68% completion percentage, 1,800 yards, 9 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and an 100 rating, but along with a 2-3 record. But he did absolutely wreck his leg in week 5. So yep. And then Cardell Jones, who is not currently on an NFL roster, but did play for the DC Defenders in the XFL. But if you really care that much, then you can go ahead and find him and find his stats. But I don't care to put it in there because this is about the NFL. Then we have Nate Sudfeld, who is on the Eagles roster. Jake Rudock, who is not on a roster. Brandon Allen, who had a 69% completion percentage, 870 yards, 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, a 97 rating, and 1-3 record. And then Jeff Driscoll, who has a 55% completion percentage, 430 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 78 rating, and an 0-1 record. And then we have a total here of 9,620 yards, 53 touchdowns, 36 interceptions, and a 15-21 record. But I mean, honestly, if you remove Jared Goff from this 6-15 record, this draft class took a massive, massive L. We've seen regression from every quarterback here, except every starting quarterback here, except for Dak Prescott, who severely injured his leg. Jacoby Brissett is no longer a starter, and yeah. And then now we're on to the 2017 draft class. So we have Mitchell Trubisky, who has 65% completion percentage, 1,800 yards, 16 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 95 rating, and a 6-2 record. Patrick Mahomes, who has a 66% completion percentage, 4,700 yards, 38 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 108 rating, 14-1 record, and a Pro Bowl appearance. And then we have Deshaun Watson at a 70% completion percentage, 4,500 yards, 30 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 112 rating, and a 4-11 record, but a Pro Bowl appearance. And then we have Deshaun Kaiser, who's on the Titans practice squad. He has had a quick fall from grace. Davis Webb, who's on the Bills practice squad. CJ Beathard, who has a 61% completion percentage, 510 yards, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 110 rating, and a 1-0 record. And then Nathan Peterman, who is 3 of 5 for a 60% completion percentage, 2,500 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions though, 73 rating. And Chad Kelly is not on a roster. And this totals up to about 11,535 yards, 89 touchdowns, 19 interceptions, and a 25-14 record. This is definitely a dub of a draft class. Mitch Trubisky has definitely shown progression here at the end of the season from where he was at the beginning of the season and last year. He's looked a lot better. They're probably one of the hottest offenses in football. Patrick Mahomes is probably second in the MVP race right now. Deshaun Watson has had an underrated year, but still made the Pro Bowl. And yeah, and then that's a dub. So 2018, we have Baker Mayfield, 63% completion percentage, 3,400 yards, 25 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 96 rating, 10-5 record. Sam Darnold, 59% completion percentage, 1,900 yards, 8 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 72 rating, 2-9 record. And then Josh Allen, 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 104 rating, 12-3 record. And then Josh Rosen, who is on the roster for who's on the roster for the 49ers. Lamar Jackson, who has 65% completion percentage, 2,600 yards, 23 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 99 rating, 10-4 record, and a Pro Bowl. And then we have Mason Rudolph with a 3 out of 4 passing. Oh, and he is starting this next game for the Steelers. 75% completion percentage, 9 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and a 77 rating. And then Kyle Lauletta, who's on the Browns practice squad. Luke Falk, who is not on a roster. Danny Etling, who's on the Seahawks practice squad. Alex McGough, who's also on the Seahawks practice squad. And then Logan Woodside, who is on the Titans roster, which this all totals up to about 11,909 yards, 86 touchdowns, 34 interceptions, and a 34-21 total record. I think this draft class took a dub. Sam Darnold has definitely improved his stock as a quarterback for someone possibly picking him up, not named the Jets, because he's in the worst situation in the NFL. And then Josh Allen and Baker Mayfield both made major improvements. Lamar Jackson may have taken a step down, but has still led his team into playoff position. And yeah. So next up we have the 2019 draft class, which has a total of, which has Kyler Murray. So he has a 67% completion percentage, 3,900 yards, 26 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 94 rating, and an 8-7 record, and a Pro Bowl appearance. And then we have Daniel Jones, 62% completion percentage, 2,700 yards, 9 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 79 rating, and a 4-9 record. Dwayne Haskins, who has 1,400 yards, 5 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 74 rating, 1-5 record, but he is no longer on a roster. Drew Lock, who has a 57% completion percentage, 2,600 yards, 14 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, 73 rating, 4-8 record. Will Greer, who's on the Panthers roster. Ryan Finley at a 53% completion percentage, 164 yards, touchdown, 2 interceptions, 52 rating, and a 1-0 record as a starter. Jarrett Stidham, who has 55% completion percentage, 212 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Easton Stick, who is 1 of 1, 100% completion percentage for 4 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and an 83 rating. And then we have Clayton Thorson, who's on the Giants roster. Gardner Minshew, who has a 66% completion percentage, 2,300 yards, 16 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 96 rating, 1-7 record as a starter. And then Trace McSorley, who has a 30% completion percentage, 90 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, 98 rating. And then Brett Ripon, who has a 68% completion percentage, 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 66 rating, and a 1-0 record, which all totals up to about 13,664 yards, 76 touchdowns, 57 interceptions, and a 20-36 total record. I'm going to have to grade this draft class as an L. I mean, really, so Dwayne Haskins just got released from Washington. This is just, and really, in this entire draft class, the only one who has separated himself from the others as a starting quarterback, in my eyes, going forward, for like someone who could possibly have a long career as a starter, is Kyler Murray. Everyone else is really hanging by the skin of their teeth right now. And yeah. And next up, we have the last but not least 2020 draft class, with Joe Burrow at a 65% completion percentage, 2,700 yards, 13 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, a 90 rating, and a 2-7-1 record. Tua Tagovailoa, 65% completion percentage, 1,400 yards, 10 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 93 rating, and a 6-2 record as starters. Justin Herbert, who has a 66% completion percentage, 4,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 96 rating, and a 5-9 record. Jalen Hurts, who has a 55% completion percentage, 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 86 rating, and a 1-2 record. Jake Luton, who has a 55% completion percentage, 620 yards, 2 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 55 rating, 0-3 record. Ben DiNucci, who has a 54% completion percentage, 220 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 68 rating, and 0-1 record. Overall, I'd say this draft class probably took an L for their performance this year. It's definitely been a rough one for these guys. No disrespect to them, but yeah. Oh, and their total of stats is 9,900 or 9,940 yards, 59 touchdowns, 26 interceptions, and a 14-18 record. So, if you guys made it to the end of this video, thank you so much. Consider subscribing and tell me in the comments what you guys think I should change of this. And anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.